And then this is a negative feedback loop. So basically keeping this is one of the main concepts we talked about, homeostasis. So keeping your internal environment stable. And that can be either, your blood sugar level, that can be your body temperature. So anything that's going to go out of range, it's going to cause health problems. So that's homeostasis. Growth versus development. Growing is getting bigger in size. Developing is going through different stages and becoming different parts of the body. Basically here, the stem cells are becoming the brain cells or the lung cells or the heart. Reproduction, we talked about asexual versus sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction have higher amount of variation, whereas asexual, it's going to be exact same copy. And when the genes get passed on from parent to offspring in sexual reproduction, that's inheritance. You have inherited your DNA from your parents. So that's inheritance. DNA, I need you guys to know the full form for DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. It's going to carry your hereditary information. And then we talked about the biodiversity. So if you have lots of species living in one area, that's going to give you higher biodiversity. This is showing a coral reef. You want to see different type of fish. There's maybe some even fungus or algae growing there. So that's a very, very stable environment. I don't think it's a very good video, but it's trying to show a coral reef. So you can see lots of different type of fish and some other species there. So it's high biodiversity versus if you just look at the ground, here's another picture, there's low biodiversity, but there are still microorganisms there. And then we got to the classification system. So this is where I'm going to start today. So let's say you get a pile of books and you're at the library, you're working as a librarian, you want to organize them. So you're going to start separating them. Maybe you separate fiction versus nonfiction first. So now we're going to take everything, we're going to start separating it. So two major groups we have prokaryotes and eukaryotes. The word pro means before. So, and then you means true. So anytime you take these two words and put it in front of something, it's going to mean before, and it's going to mean true. Karyo means nucleus. This is without nucleus, and this is with nucleus. When you look at the size, of these cells, you have eukaryote that's a lot bigger compared to prokaryotes. Viruses are even smaller. They're a lot smaller. So this is just for educational purposes, since these are not the actual sizes of prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Do you guys know if we are prokaryotes or eukaryotes?
Eukaryotes.
Eukaryotes. So humans are eukaryotes. Prokaryotes are a single cell organism, and the DNA is not in the nucleus. It's just floating around. There's no nucleus. We're going to talk about nucleus in chemistry chapter as well. So I want you to keep in mind, nucleus just means center. So nucleus means center. The DNA is in the center here for eukaryotes. For prokaryotes, it's just floating around here. Okay, so now I said you get a pile of books, you can start dividing into fiction, nonfiction. So let's talk about nonfiction. Now you take all the nonfiction and you start dividing them maybe by subject. Maybe you got science books, you got art books, you got cooking books. So that's dividing further. So we're gonna divide prokaryotes into two groups, bacteria and archaea. Bacterium is belonging to domain bacteria. Don't worry if you don't know what the word domain means. We're gonna talk about this. Archaea, that's another group. And archaea, the name comes from because these organisms live in the type of environments that are very similar to old Earth. So they live in very hot environment, or they live in very acidic environment, or very salty. So their environment is where they live is resembling to old Earth. So that's where the name comes from, archaea. It means old. So it's a part of prokaryote domain, archaea, but it's more close. When you do the DNA study, when you take DNA of archaea and then you take DNA of eukarya, you compare them, it's going to be more similar to eukarya versus bacteria. So there are more similarities, but these, because there is no nucleus, these are considered prokaryotes. So anybody knows what this is? If you have fish pond, you might see it there. This is cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria. So a lot of you guys maybe know bacteria is pathogenic. It's something bad that maybe causes disease. So cyanobacteria, it looks like green algae is found in maybe in a fish pond or fish tank if you have that. And this is the bacteria that's responsible for increasing the oxygen amount on early Earth. Cyanobacteria came around and the oxygen levels went up on the Earth. And then the organisms that need oxygen came around after that. This is another bacteria. So I'm just showing you some examples. So this is actually archaea. So these are the type, they have the type of DNA that glows in dark. So this is another example, but they're more closely related to eukaryotes. So eukaryotes are organisms whose cells typically have a nucleus. Also, you want to compare, if you compare these two pictures, you're going to notice there's a lot more things inside the eukaryotes, more complicated. It has more levels than prokaryotes. It's just DNA that's spread around. It can be a single cell or it can be multicellular, both of these. So again, eukaryotes going to have a nucleus. There's a question for you guys. How are eukaryotes different from prokaryotes? So D, yes, it is D. Prokaryotes don't have a nucleus. And then it says only eukaryotes are living organisms. There are some bacteria that are living organisms. They're prokaryotes, so that's not true. Eukaryotes always multicellular. They can be single cell or they can be multicellular. So some examples of eukaryotes. This is a fungus. This is a type of eukaryote that's going to decompose most of the materials. So by digestion. And then this is a picture of amoeba. It's a protist. So it's a protist. So we have fungus and protist. They're both eukaryotes. They're not plants, animal. So protist, when you're trying to put them in different groups, you want to see if it's a fungus, if it's not a fungus, if it's a plant or animal. If it doesn't go under plant, animal, or fungus, it's a protist. So that's how they define protist. If it's not going under these three groups, it's going to be a protist. So this is amoeba. Okay, before I move on, I want to ask you guys, do you guys think this is a picture of an animal or a plant?
Animal.
Animal. Do you guys know which one it is?
The plant.
Sea anemone, yes. So it's sea anemone. And the reason it looks green because there's some algae growing there. And they are in a mutualistic relationship, which means algae is producing some food for the sea anemone. And then in return, they're getting a place to live. So that's a mutualistic relationship. They're both benefiting each other. So again, animals and plants, they are also examples of eukaryotes. Plants are multicellular and they do photosynthesis and they're the producers. Animals, multicellular consumers, rely on plants or other animals. And we, or the animals, go through embryonic development stages. So stem cells, again, becoming brain cells or other cells. So I said, if you guys don't know what domain is, don't worry about it. So now that's what we're going to work on next. This is called taxonomic classification. So I said we're going to take nonfiction versus fiction books, and we're gonna maybe start organizing nonfiction to different subjects, maybe cooking, science, art. Now we're going to go more in detail. Let's say in cooking, there's Italian cooking, there is maybe English cooking. So we're gonna go more deeper and organize it a little bit more. So what we have domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and the species. Okay, so here is a marijuana plant. That's a common name. The domain of the plant is Eukarya. Kingdom is Plantae. It's a plant. Phylum, Magnophila. Class, Magnosiida. Order, Rosellus. Family, Cannabinaceae. And genus, Cannabis. And species, Sativa. So we took this species, basically species, and we started putting them in different groups. So this is the higher level of organization, and we're getting more in detail here. Now, it might be difficult for you to remember. So there is a mnemonic, and it's called King's Play. So you can try to remember these by mnemonics. So King's Play chess on fine green squares. So if you were having a hard time remembering, you can just say, K for kings, go for kingdom, P for phylum, C for class, O for order, F for family, G for genus, and S for species. You might have to just remember the domain by itself though. So that's how you can memorize it. And on the exam, I might just, ask you the order of this, but if you remember this mnemonic, maybe you will be able to give me the order. Another thing I want you to notice, two things are very important, genus and species, and you will notice they are italicized here. So every time you write genus and species, you're going to italicize them if you're typing them. If you're handwriting them, you're going to underline it. I'm not going to ask you to memorize all these names. I just want you to know the taxonomic classification here. So think of genus and species, family name, and a given name. So here in this picture, there's the Panthera, 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 Panthera. That's the genus. That's the same name. And then maybe this is the given name. This is a family name. And then this is the given name. Panthera leo, the lion. Panthera onca, jaguar. Panthera pardus, leopard. Panthera tigris, tiger. So think about this as a family name and think about this as a given name. Some of the Asian names have their family names first. I think we don't have that here. And then even when you look at them, they look different. You can tell they're different species. Does that make sense? Is that making sense to you guys? The genus and species working? So if you were to write genus and species, you're going to italicize it. If you were handwriting it, you're going to underline it. So it's a two-part scientific name, genus and species. Now, what are these groups called? They are called taxons. So domain is a taxon, phylum is a taxon, class is a taxon. So taxon is a group of organisms that share a unique set of traits. So these are taxonomic classifications. So what we just did is a taxonomic classification. So examples of taxons are species, genus, family, order, class, phylum, kingdom, and domain. And again, just memorize the mnemonic and you'll memorize all these. Are there any questions on this? Give me thumbs up if you guys are good with this. Move on. Okay. Okay, now I just showed you this picture. You can tell they look different. We can say they're different species, right? Because they're looking different here. Now, what about these? What do you guys think? Are they the same species? Are they different species? They're very similar looking. Are they subspecies? What do you guys think? Maybe look at their beaks. Something is different. So how would you define that? How would you know if they're same species or they're different species? Different species. I want to know why you guys think that. Jay, why do you think they're different species?
Well, they look like their heads are shaped different for different purposes.
Heads are shaped different colors. Okay,
also,
someone said different colors. Now, humans, we have different skin colors. Are we considered different species? No, right? We're still considered same species. So what is that? These type of species. So the DNA. So Jacqueline said we might have to go and do a DNA study to find out if they're different species or the same species, or because of their neck. We all, even in humans, we have different neck sizes. We don't have all, the same neck size. So that's not something you can base your finding on, basically. Yeah, you can do DNA study, but the way we define if this species belongs to the same group is something called biological species concept. There are a lot of concepts that they use to define if or to organize if they're different species or the same species, but this is the most accepted one. The person who's responsible for this is Ernest Mayr. I need you guys to know the name. He defined a species as one or more groups of individuals that can potentially interbreed and are able to produce fertile offspring. What does this mean? So horse is one species, then we have a donkey, another species. Can they interbreed? Let me know in the chat. Can horse and donkey interbreed? What do you call their offspring? Mule, right? Now mules, are they able to reproduce? Are they fertile? No, right? Okay, so that's what it means when we say a fertile offspring. So that means the offspring is able to reproduce. So that's how we define biological species concept. So in nature, that doesn't happen. In nature, horse and donkeys don't interbreed. Humans do that for labor purposes. Maybe they use mules for labor, but the mule is not able to interbreed. So those are all different species. So that's what's gonna happen when you try to make different species. On the exam, I want you guys to know the definition. I might give you a thinking question. I might say horse and donkey interbreed and they produce a mule, but mule is not able to reproduce. So what concept is this? I might give you options: biological species concept or morphological concept, or maybe another name, another type of concept, because we're going to talk about a few. So make sure you guys know the definition of biological species concept. And this is a concept that we use to put species in different groups.